This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Sylar 1610 and Ash, and brought to you by Christopher Mitchell who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, this will guarantee that your video is made, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, since it costs you nothing and tells YouTube you like what I do. But with that out of the way, let's get on with the story. Hey everyone, before we jump into things, I feel this concept needs a little explaining, since while the idea of Sorrel and Verity replacing Brock and Misty does seem simple, it has some pretty big ramifications to the anime, such as early allusions to the Sinnoh, Johto, Kalos and Alola regions, while also canonizing certain other movies, due to subtle appearances from characters originally found in those movies in I Choose You. In order to balance all that, I'm treating this more as a thought experiment around what if the I Choose You verse and the main anime timeline combined, with therefore being a bit more broad strokes and paced like a movie than my usual what ifs. So please let me know what you think of this style in the comments below. Our story begins as so many do in the Pokemon world, with Ash Ketchum waking up late and making his way to Oak's lab only to be told that the starter Pokemon have been claimed and his only remaining option is Pikachu. From here, the events we all know and love play out, with the pair struggling to bond and this leading to a flock of Spearow attacking them, thus forcing them to flee. Though it is here we see the divergence in the timeline, as after jumping into a lake and coming out on the opposite shore, Ash and Pikachu find the bank deserted like in the I Choose You timeline. Nonetheless, the pair do not have time to ruminate on this, and so continue on foot. Though being exhausted, it does not take long for Ash to trip, leaving him and Pikachu at the Spearow's mercy. Thankfully, this dedication to keeping him safe is enough to win Pikachu's trust, with the electric rodent leaping to his trainer's rescue and driving the birds off with a thunderbolt that splits the sky itself. In the aftermath of this, the pair lay collapsed in a heap, unable to move if they tried, though because of this, they are just where they need to be to see a great bird unlike any they have ever seen pass overhead, appearing golden in the sunlight but also red, white and green. Such a majestic creature fascinates Ash, as does the feather it leaves behind for him, so much so that after rushing Pikachu to the Viridian City Pokemon Center, his mind returns to as he spots a mural of 3 legendary looking birds, as well as what he's pretty sure is an Arcanine for some reason. All the same, he decides to inspect it more closely, though it seems he's not alone, as a brown-haired girl is also staring at the stone slab pensively. Making his way over, Ash introduces himself, and learns the girl's name is Verity, while in turn explaining that he thinks he saw one of the Pokemon on the mural today, the one in the blue panel to be precise, while showing off the feather. From behind them, a measured voice then explains that this Pokemon is named Articuno, though that feather seemingly belongs to Ho-Oh, who only bestows such gifts to a rainbow hero who is destined to battle it. Eagerly, Ash thanks him for this information and beams that he'd love to battle Ho-Oh someday. While finding this exuberance charming, the newcomer introduces himself as Sorrel and confesses he is on a journey to study as many legendary Pokemon as he can and one day become a Pokemon professor, so perhaps it would be beneficial if they traveled together, considering their goals seem to be aligned. Always happy to make a new friend, Ash happily agrees, while Verity beams that she wants to come too, since she's trying to be the very best like no one ever was, so maybe joining Ash in his battle against Ho-Oh will be a step in the right direction. With this bond of friendship forged, the trio begin planning their next steps, though it is here that Team Rocket bust in and demand the center's Pokemon. However, unlike the main timeline, here they aren't as much of a threat, as Sorrel's Lucario is both a second stage Pokemon and one with a poison immunity thanks to its steel typing, not to mention it knows Bone Rush, meaning it can kick these clowns' butts and send them blasting off before they even leave the foyer. As a result, the Pokemon Center is undamaged aside from the hole in the skylight caused by the villains, with the newly formed trio setting off the following morning. Like in canon, Ash still catches his Caterpie and Pidgeotto, the former of whom evolves twice in the forest, and has his battle with Samurai, though in this timeline when he learns the cosplayer has battled the other Pallet Town trainers, he expresses pleasure that Tiano and his Charmander are doing okay, having always gotten on well with the Rotund Dancer. Following this, Ash arrives in Pewter City for his first gym battle, though here he does what he presumably did in the I Choose You movie, which is to defeat Brock's Geodude and Onix with Iron Tail, since in that movie Pikachu knew the move from the start. Subsequently, this averts his training with Flint, meaning the bearded man is not driven by a fit of conscience to reveal himself, instead remaining a deadbeat dad who hawks rocks for a living, while Brock stays the gym leader, and thus does not become a companion. However, here is where things start to take a big turn, as with Sorrel in the party, he makes a request they take a somewhat sizable detour north past the Kingdom of Rhoda and up to the fabled Tree of Beginning where Mew is said to reside. While Ash is eager to get his next gym badge, the idea of seeing another awesome legendary Pokemon is hard to resist, and when Verity votes in Sorrel's favor since she wants to try and battle or catch this Mew, it seems the decision has been made by majority rule. Fortunately, this side journey is not entirely disadvantageous to Ash, as by taking the path from Rhoda, the trio bump into a crybaby Bonsly who immediately imprints on the boy thanks to his kind nature, meaning by the time they reach the Tree of Beginning, Ash has captured his 4th team member. However, the next rock type the group meet is far less nice, that being the Regirock who guards the tree. Like in the movie it appeared in, it does not take kindly to visitors, blasting at them with hyper beams that could disintegrate most people or Pokemon in an instant. Recognizing the danger they're in, Ash, Verity, and Sorrel all team up against Regirock, using Pikachu, Piplup, and Lucario respectively. As each of them has at least one super effective move, the trio feel confident they can hold their own against the Stony Golem, though this is promptly proven to be a mistake, as even with these advantages, one hit is enough to finish them all off. In their frustration, Ash and Verity quickly find themselves arguing over whose fault this loss is, though being the most pragmatic member of the group, Sorrel tells them to assign blame later, as right now they need to recall their Pokemon and flee. To the hero's relief, it seems Regirock is not interested in pursuing them once they leave the tree's perimeter, meaning they can make their escape without much difficulty, though the encounter serves as a stark lesson about how truly insignificant they are when faced with the power of a legendary Pokemon. Slinking back to Cerulean City with their tails between their legs, the trio takes some time to rest and recuperate, with this being slightly easier thanks to the fact that Ash doesn't need to win his next gym badge, instead being given it by the 3 gym leaders who have given up on taking challenges altogether. As a result of this, Ash and co have quite a pleasant time in Cerulean City, before moving down south towards Vermilion. Overall, this stretch goes like canon up until Charmander the stray Pokemon, which has one notable difference, that instead of Damien cruelly telling the fire type to wait, here its trainer is Cross, who actively and brutally urges it to move on. Unfortunately, due to still being loyal to the Ginger Boy, Charmander is loath to do so, with it taking Ash, Verity, and Sorrel carrying it to a Pokemon Center so it doesn't die for it to realize that Cross doesn't care about it. Subsequently, when offered the chance to join Ash's team, Charmander accepts, becoming his newest capture alongside Bulbasaur and Squirtle, though Krabby sadly doesn't make the cut, due to Sorrel and Verity not mocking Ash the way Brock and Misty did. As a result, the squad Ash has moving into Vermilion City is Pikachu, Butterfree, Bonsly, Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. All the same, Ash still tries and fails to beat Surge with Pikachu, leading to Nurse Joy suggesting evolution, though like in canon, the little electric type refuses, with him instead using his speed, size, and Pikachu pride to win the day. However, as it turns out, the true MVP of Vermilion City is none other than Sorrel, as the following day he requests that his friends help him look for Mew underneath delivery trucks, having heard a rumor that it likes to hide there, with this keeping them away from the harbour, and thus the SSN which departs without them. Unfortunately, this Mew hunt is as unsuccessful as the trip to the Tree of Beginning, and with no boat party to attend, and no island to save from giant Tentacruel, just don't think about that part, the trio begin heading up north, kinda baffled at how they missed Saffron City on their way down here. It would be around this time the trio would run into Tierno, with Ash being eager to battle one of his contemporaries. During this match, Tierno would try to impart some of his dance-based style to Ash, and while the shorter boy wouldn't necessarily want to mimic his friend, Bonsly would, acquiring the move Mimic, and thus evolving into Pseudo-Wudo to win Ash the battle. Not long after this, our heroes arrive at their destination, though here Sabrina is a significantly less intimidating foe, as due to the Dark-type existing and Bug Pokemon actually being able to learn Bug-type moves, Butterfree is able to handle Abra with a hefty dose of Sleep Powder or Stun Spore to stop it teleporting around, followed by a couple of Bug Bites to finish things. Thanks to this, there's no need to take a detour to Lavender Town, which in turn puts them even further ahead of schedule, meaning Ash sadly never runs into Primeape, though he does catch up with Gary, only to learn the Oak Boy has caught 30 Pokemon in contrast to his 7, and is on the way to earn his 5th badge in Celadon City. Determined not to be outshone by his rival in this latter area, Ash makes the decision to race off to the gym with Sorrel and Verity on his heels, and thankfully, due to neither of them overly caring about perfume, they don't make the fateful stop at Erica's shop, meaning Ash is never banned from the gym and can challenge it without a disguise. To start things off, Ash goes with Bulbasaur, and thanks to I Choose You being in a post-Gen 6 world, Erica's Stun Spore strategy is rendered useless, allowing the grass starter to gain an early lead, defeating her Tangela and tying with her Weepin' Bell. From there is child's play for Charmander to take out her Gloom soon after, earning Ash the Rainbow Badge without the gym burning down. Making their way over to the Pokemon Center for a bit of R&R, the trio are surprised to learn that an Entei has been spotted in a nearby forest, and seeing this as a chance to redeem themselves for their loss against Regirock, Ash, Sorrel, and Verity head off in the direction they were told. As it turns out, this is not just a mere rumor, as the legendary Fire Beast is indeed present, with Sorrel and Verity using Lucario and Piplup once again, while Ash goes with Pseudo-Wudo this time. Having been companions for longer, the trio have much greater synchronicity than before, or what they did during this point of the movie, actually managing to land some hits, though like in canon, the battle ultimately ends inconclusively with Entei fleeing and the kids feeling rather disheartened. Nonetheless, they continue on, and since Brock isn't here to insist they visit Scissor Street or promise to take on a Psyduck which he immediately dumps on Misty, not to mention their better progress overall, it is a rather uneventful trip to Fuchsia City. Here Ash uses Charmander against Koga, though in a stark divergence from either established timeline, this is where the Fire Lizard evolves, though in keeping with its I Choose You personality, it does not become disobedient, meaning Ash is a new powerhouse on his team, and it is good that he does, as not long after this, he encounters Cross, with the pair having their battle from the movie in which Charmeleon battles the Ginger Boy's Incineroar and is savagely beaten, while Cross lambasts his rival for being weak. Such a loss leaves Ash despondent and frustrated, with him even lashing out at his friends and Pokemon as he storms away to be alone. However, here he is pulled into a strange nightmare that causes him to see the error of his ways, while a mysterious shadowy Pokemon watches with glowing red eyes. The following morning, after making amends for his outburst, Ash and his friends set off once more, having several adventures including a trip to the Safari Zone in which Ash faces off once again with Team Rocket, this time in a catching contest that inadvertently leads to him acquiring his 30 Tauros, as well as stopping at Grandpa Canyon for a fossil dig that leads to Pidgeotto evolving into Pidgeot to save Ash from an Aerodactyl after he is trapped in an underground cave. Meanwhile, Verity acquires her next Pokemon, a Togepi that imprints on her after hatching, though in this timeline it is not an undiscovered Pokemon, with the girl even stating that a member of her family once had one of these, so she knows it'll grow into a strong battler someday. Finally, these shenanigans conclude with their arrival on Cinnabar Island, where Sorrel's intelligence easily allows them to solve Blaine's riddles and find the gym, where Ash prepares to face off against the leader. Like in canon, this match starts with Squirtle, though when the water type is unsuccessful, Ash switches to Charmeleon, who due to having the benefit of the I Choose You version's personality, also has its longer time spent in the middle stage. Nonetheless, this is not an issue, as even as a second stage it is strong enough to overpower Ninetales, though the same cannot be said for Rhydon, with it taking out Charmeleon and then Sudowoodo soon after, handing Ash his first gym defeat. Just as with his loss to Cross, this upsets Ash, though having learned his lesson from then, he does his best to overcome this, working hard alongside his Pokemon, while Verity assists him as a sparring partner, and Sorrel researches ways to defeat powerful Pokemon like Rhydon. Thanks to this, Ash soon feels ready to have another go at the Fire Specialist, though to his surprise when he re-enters the Volcanic Gym, he finds that Blaine already has an opponent. Cross. At present, it seems that Cross's Incineroar is locked in fierce combat with a Magmar who Ash didn't even get to see, let alone face, with it coming as an even greater shock when the Alolan Firestarter defeats the Spitfire Pokemon, earning Cross his penultimate badge. Having spurred Ash and Ko's arrival, the crass Ginger wastes no time tossing scorn his rival's way, stating that he doubts Ash and his wimpy Charmeleon can hold a candle to him and Incineroar, with this setting the black-haired boy's blood to boiling while his Firestarter feels similarly, though in Charmeleon's case, it is filled with a desire to show Cross its strength, as it has not given up on dreams of his acknowledgement. To this end, Ash invites the other boy to stay and watch, with the added pressure of an audience bolstering him as he has Sudowoodo make short work of Ninetales before facing off with Rhydon. While this does end in defeat, Squirtle is there to finish the job, leaving just Magmar. Here Ash chooses to switch in for Charmeleon so that he and it can prove Cross wrong, though at first, this looks like a direct path to failure, as Magmar's home field advantage and Air Lens counter allows it to claim an early lead. However, this is Ash and Charmeleon, a pair known for their tenacity, and so putting their all into the battle, they manage to prevail with a seismic toss, even if it is not an aerial one. Such a display of teamwork is enough to earn high praise from Blaine as he hands over his badge, though the same cannot be said of Cross, who simply flicks his hair and leaves, causing Ash to scowl, Verity to poke her tongue out at his back, and Sorrel to muse that Cross seems to only be growing more abrasive as time goes on. Nonetheless, Ash isn't about to let his rival ruin his good time, with it not being long at all before he's back in Viridian City for his final gym battle against the enigmatic leader Giovanni. Or rather, that is who he would be facing if Giovanni wasn't away on business as he so often is, leaving the gym in the hands of substitute gym leaders Jesse, James, and Meowth. Unlike canon, their borrowed Pokemon are a bit more diverse, containing ground types from other regions due to the organization's goal to acquire rare specimens, though at the end of the day, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Pidgeot manage to hold their own, and when Jesse tries to cheat, Pikachu sends the villains blasting off, earning Ash's Earth Badge and securing his place in the league. From here, a month of training begins, and while sorrow will not drive him to constantly work the way Brock would, Ash is still joined by Verity and a returned Tiano, with the trio working together to improve while also going on little adventures like when Sorrel insists they visit Professor Westwood V as one of the most underrated Pokemon professors, or Verity wants to see Bruno's secret training ground, hoping to maybe have an exhibition match with the Fighting Elite Four member. During this time, they also do some research on the feather left by Ho-Oh, making the most of having world-renowned genius Professor Oak at their disposal, as well as his academic contacts around the world. Through this, they discover that it is called a Rainbow Wing, and they must bring it to Mount Tensei where Ho-Oh will appear if the hero is worthy, though there is also tale of a guide from the shadows who will judge the hero upon their arrival, and seal the Rainbow Wing forever if they are found lacking. In spite of this dire prediction, Ash grins that he just won't be found lacking then, causing Verity to scold that arrogance isn't a very heroic trait, while Sorrel chuckles that Ash certainly isn't lacking in self-confidence. Though all three friends are eager to see Ho-Oh as soon as possible, they recognize that with the Pokemon League coming up, they won't be able to make it to Mount Tensei and back in time, with them ultimately deciding to head to the Indigo Plateau first, and then travel to the mountain range when the League is concluded. With this settled, the trio set off, and following some shenanigans with Team Rocket stealing a poor trainer's badges, as well as trying to steal the Moltres Flame Torch, Ash finds himself with the distinct honor of lighting the Great Brazier, signifying the opening of the Indigo League conference. Like in canon, Ash's first match placed him on the water field against Mandy, though here the absence of Krabby forced him to adapt. Thankfully, Squirtle is more than capable of stepping up alongside Pikachu to win the day, while Butterfree and Charmeleon prove their effectiveness against Jeanette Fisher and her Bug Grass team, since all the evasion in the world isn't worth much when you're asleep or on fire. As a result, Ash finds himself in the top 32 before he knows it, with Tiano and Gary doing likewise. However, the contender who most has his attention is none other than Cross, who has been chosen as his opponent for this round, meaning finally the pair can settle their feud. As this match also determines which of them will advance to the main stage, neither Ash nor Cross intend to hold anything back, as demonstrated by the orange-haired boy's first choice, a brutal-looking Machamp. In response, Ash calls for Pidgeot, having faith in his fully evolved flyer's ability to meet the superpower Pokemon's strength. What follows is a clash of wings, claws, and fists, as Pidgeot's wing attacks and double edges are forced to contend with cross chops and dynamic punches that threaten to knock it out of the sky and the match. However, in the end, type advantage and a bond of friendship are enough to win the day, with Pidgeot scoring the first knockout and giving Ash the early lead. Sadly, as far as leads go, this is a rather short one, as Cross's Midnight Lycanroc makes short work of the bird Pokemon soon after, causing Ash to make the somewhat baffling switch to Pikachu. That is until one remembers that the electric rodent has Iron Tail here, with this helping to level the playing field somewhat, even if his opponent is bigger and stronger. Refusing to give an inch, Cross's Lycanroc assails Pikachu with a volley of Crush Claws and Stone Edges, though there is one area in which this variant of the Wolf Pokemon struggles in comparison to its other forms, that being its speed, with this being where Pikachu shines. Thanks to this, the spunky rodent is able to slowly gain the advantage, before ultimately sending the Midnight Lupine to Dreamland with an Iron Tail across the face that brings Cross down to his last Pokemon. Unsurprisingly, this is Incineroar, with the Colossal Cat battling evenly with Pikachu for a time before taking it out. Likewise, Ash's final choice is highly predictable, though this is not necessarily a bad thing, as in such a crucial moment, there could be no one better than Charmeleon, as it is the physical representation of Ash and Cross's rivalry and the difference in their ideologies. Confident that a final stage starter will beat a middle stage, Cross arrogantly orders Incineroar to dispose of this loser with Flamethrower. Though showing how hard they have worked together, Charmeleon is able to avoid this and go on the offensive with a volley of slashes that actually force the Fire Cat back. Shocked by this, Cross orders Incineroar to put more power into the attack, espousing his belief that might makes right, and that those who are weak and lose are trash, while Ash counters with his belief that true strength comes from friendship, win or lose. As if in response to this sentiment, it is at that point that white light begins to engulf Charmeleon, with it evolving into a mighty Charizard, who is more than capable of flying out of the way of Incineroar's attacks, than dealing some fire damage from above. Such a turnabout is too much for Cross to understand, since the Charmander he owned was weak, and so by his approximation would always be weak. Though grinning broadly, Ash retorts this is what Cross has always failed to understand. Friendship allows a Pokemon and their trainer to grow together to unimagined heights while having loads of fun along the way. At this point, Charizard decides to show Incineroar some unimagined heights of its own, grabbing it and flying up before delivering a powerful seismic toss, which is more than enough to take it out, securing the win for Ash, while Cross is forced to reckon with how wrong he was and reassess his outlook as a trainer. As it turns out, he is not the only of Ash's rivals to fall at this hurdle, so when Ash returns to the Pokemon Center that night, he learns that Gary was also eliminated today, while he and Tieno are slated for a top 16 match. Like in canon, Ash has some misgivings about battling his friend, though with some encouragement from Sorrel, Verity, and Tieno himself, he manages to find his spirit, and so prepares for an incredible battle, only for Team Rocket to kidnap him and almost get him disqualified. Thankfully, Charizard and Pidgeot are able to get him out of trouble and back to the stadium, though they are both somewhat tired out, meaning Ash will go into this battle with a disadvantage, and one that will ultimately cost him, as after several short skirmishes, the battle comes down to Tieno's fresh Charizard against Ash's worn-out one, with this making all the difference, as Ash's Charizard simply cannot endure both today's fatigue and the after effects of its intense battle with Incineroar yesterday, meaning our Heroes League run still ends in the top 16. While somewhat disappointed, Ash still has something to look forward to, and so makes plans to head to Mount Tensei with Sorrel and Verity. Before he goes, however, he is accosted by Cross, who while still brusque and caustic wishes him and Charizard luck on this quest, having evidently found some truth in Ash's lesson. While this is good for Cross, it is even better for Ash, since as a result, when he and his friends reach the mountain, they are not ambushed by him, nor does the darkness in his heart taint the Rainbow Wing, causing Marshadow to turn evil, marshal an army of Pokemon and kill Ash, only for Pikachu to gain the power of human speech and in turn grant Ash the ability to outrun death itself, since that would be ridiculous. Instead, when they arrive, it is Marshadow who greets them, with the Gloom Dweller Pokemon guiding them to the summit, where as promised, Ho-Oh soon descends with a majestic trill. Stepping forward, Ash greets the Rainbow Bird with great deference while holding up the wing it left him as if to say that he has fulfilled the task it set him. For a moment, Ho-Oh does not respond, seemingly eyeing him imperiously, then with a cry, it takes to the air, already manifesting a sacred fire. As this happens, Ash looks back to his friends, asking if they're ready to face this legend with him, to which Verity grins that she knows the third time will be the charm, while Sorrel retorts that he doesn't believe in such superstitions, though this will be invaluable for his research. Then as one, they call forth their Pokemon so the battle may begin. Several days later, our heroes find themselves back in Pallet Town, specifically Oak's lab for a celebration of Ash, Gary, and Tieno's league performances. Due to having 3 strong young trainers to celebrate, more than half the town has shown up, including Ash's mum Delia, along with special guests such as Cross, who stuck around the Indigo Plateau and returned with Tieno. Presently, both Cross and Gary are grilling Ash for details about his battle with Ho-Oh, though in response, the black-haired boy just gives Verity and Sorrel a knowing smile. Growing frustrated with his caginess, Cross growls that if Ash won't tell him freely, he'll battle him for the information, since he and his Pokemon have made some major strides since their match at the League, with Ash grinning they'd love a battle, though before either boy can call forth their first Pokemon, he is beckoned over by Professor Oak, who states there is a task he needs done if Ash would be willing to help. Grinning broadly, Ash replies that of course he'll help. Then, as he looks back to Verity and Sorrel, he asks if they're ready for another adventure. And that's where we'll leave things. What is this task Professor Oak needs help with? Will Verity and Sorrel join Ash for a new journey? And how will their presence further influence the story? Find out as the journey continues.